Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon and today I'm here to have a chat with you about my September book haul. So some of the books sent by publishers, some books that a couple of you very kindly sent, and then quite a lot of books that I treated myself to in September because I went to quite a few independent bookshops and I just can't leave an independent bookshop without a book or two or more. Anyway, before all of that, I thought I would just mention a little bit of admin in the fact that there will not be a September wrap-up video from me. And that is because in September, I read quite a lot of books for a prize that I am one of the judges on, the Wilbur Smith Adventure Writing Prize. And the winner is going to be announced on the 18th of October. I can tell you it's an absolute banger, but I can't say anything more than that. And what I'm going to do, because I've judged 2 prizes this year, I think I might do a video on some of the books that I secretly read that I loved this year, or is that fair if the shortlists and longlists have been made public? Let me know your thoughts on that down below. But what I'm what I'm really hoping to do at the end of this year is do a video where I go through every single book that I read in 2023 and do a single sentence review on them. So just mentioning that little bit of admin. Now let's get cracking on the books that I got in September, starting off with publishers. And as I mentioned, I'm not mentioning all the books that I got from publishers, just some of them, as it happens every month, but it has been specifically high in the last month or so that I'm getting a lot of unsolicited books that I'm just not sure are for me. But what I'm going to do in November over on Patreon, which is always linked down below, is on my beta readers tier, I will be taking a lot of books that I've had recently unsolicited that might be me, maybe, and trying a chapter and then deciding if I want to carry on reading, but also getting my patrons to decide if I should add them to my TBR and get reading them at some point. Sorry, someone phoned me. Imagine, a number I didn't know. I never answer those. So first up, some of the books that have been sent to me by publishers, and the first 4 I have shown on the channel before, but in different forms. The first of which I showed you in hardback, but is now in paperback, and that is All Down Darkness Wide by Sean Hewitt. And shame on me because I wanted to read this as soon as the hardback came out and haven't got around to it yet, but I think this will be perfect for non-fiction November. This is about Sean and his partner and their relationship and how depression affects it in various ways. I'm really excited for this because anytime I read a memoir or a novel by a poet, I tend to absolutely love them. I don't know what it is about it that makes that happen in my head, but it seems to add an extra fizz or something. So really, really excited for this. And yeah, it'll be perfect for non-fiction November. And that is quite an autumnal version of the cover, because the previous one was quite out there, the hardback one, in a delightful way. Then a book that Ben Reesgood said was an autumnal cover, but I think this is autumn into winter because you've got those autumn shades here, but this to me is much more sort of bleak wintry. Anyway, it's Blackouts by Justin Torres. I absolutely loved his debut, We Are the Animals, or We the Animals. Which one was it? It was We the Animals. This is about a younger gay man and an old gay man. And I think the younger one is looking after the older, and it's how they sort of share their life experiences. And I think this is going to be really, really, really fantastic. So very excited for this. All the sort of reviews and I was going to say blurbs, what do I mean? Sort of like the social media bubble or buzz around this has been really, really high. So that's exciting. But of course, you know me, I'm avoiding as much of it as I can so that I go into it fairly blind. Then we have a finished copy of Kate Grenville's Restless Dolly Maunder, which I believe is a fictional account of the life of her either her great-grandmother or her grandmother. I read the memoir that Kate wrote about her mum, which was fantastic. So I'm really, really intrigued to see what she does here, turning a family story into fiction. She's an author I like very, very much indeed. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to heading to this. And then we have Family Meal by Bryan Washington, which I've enjoyed all of Bryan Washington's books that I've read so far. And so yeah, very much looking forward to this. Don't really know what it's about. Don't really want to until I get to reading it, because that's just the contrary Mary Fairy I am. On to books I don't think I have shown you on the channel yet from publishers that have come, well, that came last month. We have Disobedient Bodies first by Emma Dabiri, and I had the pleasure of interviewing Emma for Sky Arts from Hay earlier this year about her to previous non-fictions books, which I absolutely loved and will be recommending for non-fiction November. This I'll be reading in non-fiction November because it's one that I just want to get to, and I think Emma looking at how we look at other bodies and our own bodies is going to be really, really interesting. So that's exciting. Super duper excited for this next book. It's one of my most anticipated novels of 2024. It's Stoneyard Devotional by Charlotte Wood, who is fast becoming one of my favourite authors. I feel like Charlotte Wood should be way more read and way better known in the UK. The Natural Way of Things, absolutely incredible. The Weekend, absolutely incredible. So excited for this. Don't know anything about it, don't want to, just looking forward to getting to it, and I shall be doing very, very soon, because I'm going to start heading, now that we are in the last quarter of the year, to 2024 books, especially as, slight spoiler for next month's book haul, the new Caris Davis has arrived in the house. Imagine. Another book that I think is out imminently that I'm super duper excited for, and is an author who I've only read one book by before but really, really loved it. It's Jesmyn Ward, and this is Letters Descend. This is the proof edition. No, don't know if it shows you. Yeah, it's going to look like that. And I have no idea what this is about. I don't want to know too much about it. I just want to go into it and read it, and I'm so excited for it. Once I knew this was coming out, it made me put on pause the backlist books of hers that I wanted to read. I read Sing and Bury Sing and just thought that was phenomenal when it was on the Women's Prize longlist, and then when it got shortlisted. Well, I read it when it was on a long list, but it got shortlisted. I have high hopes that this will be on the long list next year. I'd blinking love it if Charlotte Wood was too. Just saying. Then a short story collection that I asked the publishers for. I should say, I begged for this one. I also begged for this one. But this one was one that I asked for from the lovely folk at Trapeze. This is Edge of Here by Kelechi Okafor. And these are speculative, slightly sci-fi short stories. And I'm in the mood for that. It doesn't happen very often, but when I was hearing about this collection, it sparked that in me. And that sort of part of my reading personality, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't like come to the fore that often, but when I heard about this, I was like, oh my goodness, I really want to read it. So I will be heading to this very soon. Two poetry collections that I asked for by the same author are Zaffar Kunial's England's Green and Us. And Zaffar Kunial is the poet in residence for Durham Book Festival, which I'm going to. I've also judged the Costa Book Awards with him and meant to read his poetry before and haven't got around to it. And the lovely folk at Faber very kindly has sent me these two. Speaking of Faber, the next two proofs are both from them. The first is Fanatic Heart by Thomas Keneally, one of Australia's best known writers. Don't know anything about this. I don't know if I've actually read one of his books. I haven't read Schindler's List. I've seen the film and I feel like I should, because I always say that I really love Australian fiction, which I do, but I haven't read that many of the greats, and he is deemed one of the greats. And then this arrived unsolicited. I'm thrilled, as did the Thomas Keneally, I should say, because I had been chatting on Instagram to David Ebershoff about this, and he was raving about it. It's Happiness Falls by Angie Kim, and this I think is going to be a big crime sort of literary thriller next year, and just the praise that I was saying about it without knowing too much about it was getting me excited about it. I said about it quite a lot there. I know that's a tenuous reason for wanting to read a book, but it's a genuine reason for wanting to read a book. I'm sure it's something that a lot of you will find, like there'll just be a certain buzz around a book and you're like, oh, I don't know exactly what that one's about, but I think I want to read it because of that kind of buzziness. Anyway, on to two lovely gifts. The first of which is from one of my patrons, Rachel. I was thrilled to get this. She also very kindly sent my mother a Catherine Chidgey book that isn't out in the UK yet because Mum has fallen in love with her writing. And she also sent me from New Zealand this, which is Sydney Bridge Upside Down by David Ballantyne. Rachel, I am thrilled because you know me so well. It says, a great untamed story about childhood, a summer holiday, and a sinister tragedy that looms over everything. that sounds like my kind of thing. I also really like these text classics which celebrate sort of lesser known Australian fiction. And then I got from my wishlist, which is always linked down below, from the lovely Fiona, The Animal in the Room by Meghan Kemp, which is a poetry collection that I just fell in love with the cover for. And with my wishlist, disclaimer, I don't put any books that I can get in independent or high street bookshops in the UK. It's all international editions that you can't get here, because otherwise I just think that would be wronger. I need to read more poetry. I haven't read that much this year, so maybe this is one that I'll head to. I mean, is that giving autumnal cover or is it giving spring? To me, that could be giving autumn, so maybe actually I could get to it quite imminently. Then on to treats that I got for me from me. First of those is the short story advent calendar 2023. Now, I have been reading these short story calendars since 2017, and every year they bring me so much joy. It's my favourite advent calendar, and considering how much I love chocolate, that is saying something. I have no idea the authors in here or who's written what, and that's really, really exciting. And in the past, when I've read these, they've always introduced me to new authors who I've then gone on to read a novel by or a short story collection by and really, really enjoyed. And maybe, if not this year, then maybe next year, I'll do a video on that. They've just brought me some corking reads, and I'm very, very excited for them and can't wait to get cracking, although I don't want to rush the away. I think actually, I'm going to say it, this and chocolate advent calendars are probably my favourite thing about Christmas after Boxing Day, which is the best day pretty much of the whole year. Then we have a few books that I have had imported. Now, this is one of the most recommended to me books of 2023. In Memoriam is probably at number 1. Then at number 2, we have The Whalebone Theatre by Joanna Quinn. And this American edition, this lovely floppy paperback, is just so stunning compared to my UK one, which I don't really like very much. So I ordered it especially, and I'm gonna give credit to quite a few of my patrons who recommended me this, but particularly Sue, who just was like, Simon, you have to read it, Simon, you have to read it, and has kept asking me if I've got it yet. And finally, the imported edition has arrived. So very excited for that. Then, speaking of imports, I saw this on Instagram recommended by, it's Rosamund Pike, the actress, isn't it? I always want to say Rosamund Pilcher, but I think she was an author. Anyway, they do this, I can't remember if it's, this is doing really well, isn't it? I can't remember the name of the actress, I can't remember the name of the brand, but it's either Chanel or Yves Saint Laurent do this books in a bag thing where someone goes out with a Chanel or Yves Saint Laurent shopper and goes around a bookshop and fills it with some of their favourite books. And this was one of Rosamund Pike's favourite books. It's a graphic novel about mums, and I think it sort of shows motherhood in a very different light, and that really, really excites me. So looking forward to getting to that in due course. I should say it's by Youngshin Ma, and it's translated by Janet Hong. So yeah, looking forward to that. Then I think this is up for the Giller Prize this year. There's been quite a few different prizes announced overseas recently, and so I'm mildly confused. It's The Islands by Dion Irving, and it's a short story collection following the lives of Jamaican women immigrants or the descendants of immigrants who have relocated all over the world to escape the ghosts of colonialism. And I think this is going to be fantastic. Then books that I bought in the UK and didn't have imported because they're out here. The first is Pretty Baby by Chris Belcher, which is Chris's memoir about growing up and being part of pageants, and then a decade later living in Los Angeles and becoming LA's renowned lesbian dominatrix. That sounds like it's going to be quite the, I was going to say story, but like it's real, quite the tale. I don't know, as soon as you say it, it sounds like it's fiction, but it's non-fiction. Perfect for non-fiction November. Then we have Drifts by Natasha Burge, and this is also from Footnote, and this is about Natasha, who grew up in Saudi Arabia and grew up queer, but also discovered at 37 that they were autistic, and I think that's going to be really, really interesting to read about. Again, non-fiction, but something a little bit different. I think they come out as queer. That might not be true, but I feel like that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get to it. Anyway, then, and this is definitely another queer memoir, this is Voice of the Fish by Lars Horn. And again, I don't often read the blurbs of books, but when I was looking into Footnote, it was the blurbs that made me want to order the books. And this is a kaleidoscopic hallucinatory memoir that explores the trans experience through meditations upon aquatic life and mythology, set against the backdrop of travels in Russia and a debilitating injury that left Horn temporarily unable to speak, read and write. I just think this is going to be absolutely incredible. So yeah, very keen for that during Non-Fiction November. Then the next three, I think I just bought in different Waterstones. Daniel Evans, Before You Suffocate Your Own Pulse. No, this I bought in an independent bookshop, and I can't remember which one it was. I know it was one that I feel like I went into with... Which one was it? This was a case of couldn't leave an independent bookshop without a book, and so picked this up even though I haven't read Daniel Evans' previous short story collection, which I have on my shelves. Although I think actually this might have been published before that one. I can't remember which bookshop it was though. That's gonna really bother me. Then the next two I did buy at random Waterstones. First of all, we have All That's Left Unsaid by Tracy Liane, and this is up for the Readings Prize in Australia, so that made me want to get to it. I don't know what it's about at all in any way, shape or form, and I can't pretend otherwise, so we have that. And then a surprise purchase before we go to books that I bought from independent bookshops that I can't remember. That's a little bit awkward. That's going to really bother me. I just can't remember which bookshop I bought that in. Anyway, I picked up The Fraud by Zadie Smith, which, as I said, may be a surprise to many of you. If you have followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I've not had a great reading relationship with Zadie Smith. I thought NW was fine. I thought On Beauty was not. And actually, oddly, On Beauty I read because it had won the Women's Prize before I really followed the prize. It was back when I was sort of getting back into reading after several years of not picking up any books at all. And I remember having that sticker on it and thinking, oh, it's won that prize, so it must be really good. And then I just wasn't sure about it. But I'm intrigued for this one. I have read the first, how many chapters is it that I've read? 15, but then decided to put it off for a themed reading vlog that I'm planning in the next few weeks. So yeah, there we go. I feel like I don't need to say too much about that book because it's been talked about a lot. Then on to books from specific independent bookshops. So back in September, I was very lucky to be invited to the Dead Ink Bookshop and Publishing birthday party. Dead Ink are an independent publisher who are based in Liverpool and have a bookshop in Liverpool too. So I got one of their books, which is Carawan, The Story of a Fire by Bronwen Adcock. And the reason that I was drawn to this was this is a memoir of Bronwen's from when her and her family were affected by some of the horrific bushfires in Australia, which I have read about through other writers and have found to be harrowing yet haunting. And I don't know, there's something about them that it sounds awful, like I'm sort of reading it almost as like in a voyeuristic way. I don't mean it that way, but the way it looks at nature versus human nature and all that in the previous books that I've read, one a memoir and one a set of fictional short stories, has been phenomenal. So I'm really keen to get to this one. The other book that I got was from the lovely folk at Cypher Press and Dead Ink Bookshop. If you get the chance to go in Liverpool, they're amazing for having loads and loads of indies, very much like Jordan and Dandy, a West Kirby bookshop. There's not a West Kirby bookshop haul in this selection, which is a shock, because generally every month I pop in and buy something. However, next week, get ready for a video where you'll see a major haul from there for Books in My Bag Day. Anyway, that's me teasing a video, but it will be coming, and my mum's in it, so you'll probably enjoy that all the more. This is Truth and Dare, short stories by So Mayer, and I've heard that these fantastic queer, quirky tales, and I'm really, really excited for them, so I'm going to head to those in due course. I picked these two books up when I was in Leeds the first time in September at the fantastic Bookish Type, which is a queer bookshop, queer independent bookshop. You can't miss it. It is bright pink, and I picked up two books there. First up, The Old Haunts by Alan Radcliffe, which is, oh, I love that cover. I thought that was autumnal to me, but actually those trees feel like Christmas trees just without the decoration, so this could be a December read. But this is a novel about a couple, one who has been recently bereaved and had possibly quite a complicated relationship with his parents, and they go to sort the stuff out, then one of the partners goes, and so Jamie is left to sort of really face his past. Intriguing. Then I hadn't heard of this one, and this is what I love about going book shopping, particularly to independents, is when you just get the chance to have like a nice browse along the shelves and just find something. Now the blurb of Other People Managed by Ellen Hawley just got me, and it says, it's Minneapolis in the 1970s and two young women meet in the women's coffee house. Marge is a bus driver and Peg is training to be a psychotherapist. Over the next 20 years they stay together through the challenges any couple faces and some that no one expects. Then one day things change and Marge has to work out what she's left with, and if she still belongs to the family she's adopted as her own. And I thought, to have all of that in quite a slight book is going to be a proper, like, I don't know, I feel like this is going to be one of those books that's just jam-packed and I can't put down. So there we go. And that's also a rare case of me reading a blurb and grabbing the book and taking it with me, because quite often I'll read a blurb and be like, right, I'll save that for another time once I've forgotten it a bit, but I'll note down the title. But I just couldn't stop myself with that one. And that wasn't my only trip to the Bookish Type, as you'll see. In Sheffield, I picked up at Juno Bookshop, which is a, I guess, feminist bookshop is the way they describe it. And they predominantly have books by female authors. This is Rose Tremaine's Absolutely and Forever. Rose Tremaine is one of my favourite authors. This is her latest book. I believe it's set in London and Paris, and it's about a love affair that a woman has with a man named Simon. So I'm intrigued for this. And then when I was back in Leeds again, towards the end of last month, I went to Holdfast Bookshop, which is a bookshop barge, and picked up Lem Sisay's Let the Light Pour In morning poems. And these are a selection of poems that Lem wrote, one every morning over, like, I think a decade it's been happening. They're just 4 lines that he would write, and I'm really looking forward to heading to that. And going back to prizes that I've judged this year, Lem was the chair of the judges when I judged the Royal Society of Literature's Christopher Bland Prize for authors over 50, debut authors over 50, fiction, non-fiction, along with Mina Kantasame, and we had the best time judging that prize. So I really wanted to read more of Lem's work. I loved his memoir. When I say loved, it's hard to say that about that book, because it is pretty harrowing and hard to read. And then I have shown this book on the channel before because the lovely folk at Picador sent me it, but when I saw this on my second trip to Leeds and second trip to the Bookish Type, I couldn't not pick up this independent limited signed edition, and it's Emma Donoghue's Learned by Heart, and I just think that's so beautiful, and I'm really excited for this one. I want to read this fairly soon. It's about part of Gentleman Jack, or Anne Lister's, life, and one of the relationships that was a really big part of her life. So really, really, really keen to read this. Yeah, very, very excited for it indeed. So there we go. Those are the books that I got. Well, those are nearly all of the books that I got in September. Let me know in the comments down below what you got in September that you were super duper excited about. If you've read any of these books and you didn't like them, don't tell me that right now. Tell me that once I've read them, and I'm happy to have a chat with you. But at the moment, I'm super duper excited for all of them, and I don't want that excitement to be fizzled out. As always, it's been a pleasure to spend time with you. I hope you have enjoyed this. Do I normally say that? I don't think I do. Anyway, but let's keep the conversation going in the comments down below. It's always lovely to chat to you down there. And also, speaking of down there, as I mentioned, my Patreon is linked down there, my wishlist is linked down there, my Instagram, my threads, the artist formerly known as Twitter, etc. All down there below, as will be a list of the books mentioned. I will see you in another video very, very soon. Bye.